Hi, my name is Wendy Fortner, and I am going to discuss my research topic. Um, I chose to research how negative affect can relate to sports injury recovery. Um, and I chose this topic because I am a mom of athletes, and I have one particular child who has suffered two significant uh, athletic injuries in the past 2 years. He broke his collarbone 2 years ago. He has a nice little titanium plate with some screws, so he's a metal man. And then he also suffered a Salter Harris fracture of his ankle in last November during wrestling preseason. So it took him out of the entire season of wrestling. And I got to watch how he handled both of those injuries in completely different ways. And I think it's an important avenue to research and discuss. While I was doing my research, I noticed that most, if not all, of the research that was conducted was geared towards professional athletes, elite athletes, college athletes, not, I want to say, minimal to none. Research was geared towards adolescents or children in any way. So I didn't find a lot of information regarding adolescents specifically. And I found that really interesting considering, most elite athletes, college athletes, professional athletes, they don't just start out, as adults. They are adolescents as well. And athletes as a whole are conditioned to not talk about their feelings, to kind of suck it up, buttercup, and that kind of thing, and to toughen up and all of that. And that's fine and that's great, except for the fact when it comes to their injuries, they don't process the negative emotions and the negative feelings that they have in a proper way, to where it actually they process it, they get through it, and then they move on. A lot of it leads to different substance abuses, disordered eating. It can lead to some pretty gnarly stuff. It's a pretty interesting ordeal, especially if they do not get to go back into sports. If they have one too many concussions or anything like that, they're done, and they don't really know how to process that. And I think that's we need to start helping athletes through that. It's not always medals and first places. There's some rough stuff too, and we need to help them process that. And I think that if anything, my research has led me to really make that a focus. And I really think there needs to be more research done out there to change the team dynamic and change how injured athletes are treated at practice, and how injured athletes are coached and included or discluded. So it was some pretty interesting stuff. There are a couple of ideas that I would really like to kind of just touch base on, that I found in my research. And one of them was let's see here, the idea of the athlete's mental health or psychological well-being. and can attribute to their overall self-efficacy and the ability to get back in there and do, compete. Basically what I found in the research was that the higher level of self-efficacy that an athlete has, the better off they are psychologically. So once they start up here and they get knocked down with an injury, they have an easier time getting back up here. If you start down here and then you get an injury, it's harder for you to get back up here and even rise above that. So that was something that I thought was really interesting. And then another concept was called sports injury related growth. That was defined as changes that assist an injured athlete to reach a higher level of ability than previously experienced prior to injury. Having that self-efficacy, that confidence in yourself, is a key factor in that. I always, and a lot of people, I think, always assume that once you get injured, especially if it's a significant injury, a knee, an ACL, you will have a difficult time competing at the level you were prior to your injury. So I thought that was an interesting a concept that I found in my research. I did not focus on injury specifics. I stayed away from concussions. That's a whole different ballgame. I stayed away. There was a lot of research that I found that had to do with ACL injuries, and I stayed away from that as well. Basically, what I decided to do for my research was get a kind of a demographic of the kids participating. I focused on wrestlers because I have a giant access to wrestlers. And they're willing to participate in pretty much anything, all the time. They're good. So I focused on our wrestling team. They also participate in other sports as well. But I was going to get a demographic kind of form filled out for them, when their last injury was, socioeconomic status, race, generic stuff like that, what other sports they participated in, and then I was going to do the Beck's anxiety and depression scale, but considering I am dealing with adolescents, teenage boys, it was an all-male selection. We don't have any female wrestlers, unfortunately. So I decided to squish that down, and I went with the PANAS assessment, which is for positive and negative affect. It is a 20-question scale, and it's very easy to complete. It takes about 10 to 20 minutes. I included an informed consent for parents and guardians. I included an informed assent because I'm dealing with adolescents, basically 12 to 18, so they kind of understand. They have enough understanding to know what they're doing. And it just basically discussed their feeling. It was a scale, kind of 1 to 5, that would rate their feelings within the last. It was a time sensitive scale, so it would rated their emotions from 1 to 5 on how severe or how positive or negative they felt about certain items. I did not actually conduct this study. I didn't have to go to IRB. So, hypothetically, I think it would show that once the athlete was injured, they did have some negative feelings towards the injury, towards themselves, frustration, anger levels, that kind of thing. And I think that there's a lot we can do to help kids through that, as a coaching staff, as training staff, athletic trainers, physical therapists. I think there's a lot they can do to help kids get through that. So that's kind of, it was a correlational study. I don't know if that was important or not. I don't know. I have a hard time talking about this stuff. So anyway, that's it. I hope everybody enjoyed listening to this. Thanks.